What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another video. It is your boy Alphabet Soup here, and today we are looking at the Detroit Lions tight end positional group for the 2020 NFL season. So let's get it started. Welcome in, everybody, to another video. Glad you guys are here. And in my last video we did about positional groups, we looked at the receiver position, and I said we're going to break the receiver position and the tight end group into two, and today we're looking at the tight end positional group. So let's get it started. Now, before we get into it though, I do have to say, first off, thank you for the support on yesterday's running back hype video. If you guys haven't seen it yet, you can definitely go check it out. But I'm planning to do that with a lot of different players and positions. I'm planning to do one for Matthew Stafford because, you know, that's going to be hype. You know, he's coming back. Matthew Stafford is coming for the crown next season, if you haven't seen the video. We also are going to do one on the receiver position, the defensive backs, you know, just everything. And if there's anything that you want to see a hype video for 2020, comment it, put it in the comment section. We're not going to do a hype video for the whole quarterback position group. I mean, I guess we could. I really don't see a point though, because like, hey, no one really wanted to see Chase Daniel, okay? For the most part, we're just hoping to see Matthew Stafford for the full season. So let's just keep it to Matthew Stafford. I think Matthew Stafford, you know, missing half of last season, you know, he's ready to come back. He's ready to ball out in 2020. So I think a hype video for him would be fire. But until then, today we're looking at the tight end positional group. Maybe one of those videos come out late tonight. I don't know. We'll have to see. You know, I might be a little busy. We'll see. I'm planning to do some Dose of Gaming. Also, go subscribe over there. All right, we're doing way too many plugs here. I'm getting confused. We need to talk about the tight end positional group. So, in 2019, I would say for the most part, the Detroit Lions tight end positional group, from the outsider perspective, from a fan perspective, they would say that the tight end positional group definitely didn't live up to the hype for the 2019 season. They did not live up to expectations. And a big reason for that is because the stat production was not very impressive. In 2019, the Detroit Lions basically had a completely new, revamped tight end positional group. I mean, before we had Luke Wilson, Levine Toilolo, Eric Ebron, you know, that was years ago. But either way, we had a whole bunch of different guys moving in and out. And all of a sudden in 2019, we kind of just redid that. We rebuilt that positional group. You know, you drafted, with the 8th pick in the draft, you took a tight end. Obviously, he's going to have high expectations no matter what because he's a top 10 pick. You signed Jesse James to a pretty large deal. You also draft Isaac Nauta. All of a sudden, there's high expectations for the tight end group. You have Logan Thomas. And in 2019, I would say statistically, it didn't look that great. So the first player we're going to start off with is Jesse James. Now, Jesse James is a 6'7", 250-pound tight end. He's a big guy, all right? He's a big guy. He's looked at as a guy that could definitely be a red zone threat. Now, I would say for most fans, they look at Jesse James and say he was the biggest disappointment for the 2019 season. And I do understand where you're coming from. I have to side with Jesse James a little bit, just a little bit, okay? Here's why. See, Jesse James statistically didn't put up these huge numbers. And when you looked at his numbers with the Steelers, you say, oh yeah, he's going to be pretty good for it with us. You also look at how much money we gave him. You're probably saying, all right, this guy's got to play well. And then you look at the stats at the end of the year and you say to yourself, this dude had 142 receiving yards on the season. That's not living up to expectations. While I do agree with that, I also would say that he only had 27 targets on the season. And while that could be because, hey, you weren't getting open, I'm not going to throw the ball to you, or it could just be for the fact that they used him a lot more in blocking than necessarily in the passing game, right? A guy that they would throw the ball to as a weapon down the field. He only had 27 targets that went for 16 receptions for 142 yards. He had a 59.5% catch rate. That would be the catch rate. 8.9 yards per reception, only 5.3 yards per target. And he played in 46% of the snaps. So he played in nearly half our snaps, played in all 16 games, didn't start all, but played in all 16 games. And he only had 27 targets. So I think it's a mix between, one, he didn't get necessarily that open. Maybe they used him a lot more to block, which I think he did really well at, which doesn't show up on the stat sheet. Now, one big factor with all of these tight ends that went into last season that we cannot overlook is Darrell Bevel. See, a lot of these guys are brand new. We have a very young tight end group. Just like, you know, we talked about the secondary position, we talked about a very young tight end group. Not one of these tight ends is over the age of 26. All right, we have one 26 years old. That is Jesse James. Everybody else is under 26. All the other players are on their rookie deals, okay? The most expensive player that we do have in the tight end group is Jesse James. These guys are young and they're brand new to the Detroit Lions. Most of these guys are pretty darn new to the Lions. Okay, last year for a lot of these guys were their first year with the Detroit Lions, and for everybody offensively, it was their first year with Darrell Bevel. So when it's your first year with a new offensive coordinator, his job is to get the tight ends involved, right? He wanted the tight ends. They just didn't have the greatest statistical production in 2019. So there's a mix between a lot of things. One, you're trying to gain chemistry and get familiar with Matthew Stafford because, right, he's your quarterback, which we've seen a lot of players doing this offseason. Two, you have to get comfortable with Darrell Bevell, and he has to find ways to fit you in a system of what you do well and what you don't do well. So that's what you had to do in year one. You kind of just had to hop right into that. 3, there are so many weapons on the Detroit Lions offense that it can be really tough to get the ball in your hands, because at the end of the day, there's only one ball to go around. And when you have the receivers like we do in the receiving group that we do, and now even the running backs, it's going to be really tough to get the ball in everybody's hands to get everybody touches. So there's a lot of factors that go into the stats being pretty low last season. However, I do think they can improve a little bit with everybody getting more comfortable. I just don't think the expectations should be 1,000 yards receiving from a guy like TJ Hockenson, because I would say there's most likely you're going to be disappointed if that is your expectations. And for Jesse James, I would say you can have higher expectations. I mean, I felt like he blocked pretty well in the passing and rushing game, and that's what we utilized it for. But I feel like next year he could be more of a factor in the red zone. 6'7", that should be a huge factor in the red zone. Some people even say he's 6'8". All right, this should be a guy that you could just throw it up to in the red zone. So I feel like he should be more of a factor on the field. He probably has to get open more as well. And Darrell Bevell, he's got to utilize him. And Matthew Stafford needs to find the guys on the field. So there's a lot that goes into it. Don't have extremely high expectations, but I think we should have more expectations than what he put up last season. Now let's hop over to TJ Hockenson, okay? The second year now tight end, the former 8th pick in the NFL draft. TJ Hockenson last season did not play in all games. He played in 12 games, had a couple of injuries last season. Unfortunately, that kind of derailed everything. Keep in mind, this dude is really young. I mean, he's a rookie. You know how young these guys are? Very young player, man. He's trying to hop in with high expectations. And in week 1, he lived up to the expectations. Without a doubt, he lived up to the expectations and more. And after that, he was a rookie. After that, he was a rookie. He had 32 receptions on 59 targets, which is a 54.2% catch rate. So, hey, that's actually lower than Jesse James. Fun fact. For 367 yards, 11.5 yards per reception, 2 touchdowns, and 6.2 yards per target. So, again, I would say for the most part, people say that he had, maybe didn't live up to what we were expecting out of the 8th pick in the draft. And I think that's fair, the 8th pick in the draft. But, for one, a lot of tight ends that are that young usually don't ball out in their first year. And 2, he did miss some games with some injuries. So I think there was some inconsistencies. Then you lost Matthew Stafford. All these guys did for the second half of the year. There's a lot of inconsistencies, a lot of things they're trying to get, trying to learn. He's a rookie in the league. He's never even played in the NFL before. There's a lot to it. We're utilizing him in the block. He has a huge responsibility. And honestly, I would say you gave me 367 yards and you gave me 32 receptions. You gave me 2 touchdowns. You weren't at your best, right? You weren't at your best. I think he'll become more efficient in 2020, and that's what he needs to focus on. Just catching more of the passes thrown to him, not necessarily getting tons more targets, just catching more of the passes thrown to him, because I don't know how much targets will go up. However, I don't think it was a bad first year, and I think we need to set the expectations at a reasonable level. Maybe you say, okay, if he plays 16 games, give me 600 receiving yards, something like that. I don't think it should be crazy, but you never know. He could break out. And again, he blocks really well. That's something that does not show up on the stat sheet. Next up, we have Isaac Nauta. Okay, now Isaac Nauta, like TJ Hockenson, is coming into his second year now with the Detroit Lions, the former tight end from Georgia. Now, unfortunately for Nauta, we just don't have a lot to talk about, because last season he didn't play that much. He only played in a very few amount of games, only played 41 snaps on the season, where he had 2 receptions on 3 targets for 13 yards. So he was behind Logan Thomas, TJ Hockenson, Jesse James. So there's really not a role there, but we could see a bigger role out of the 6'3", 246-pound tight end. Because what's great about Isaac Nauta, and like Hunter Bryant, which we're about to talk about, they are not guys that are just specifically stuck to the tight end position. Like, they can move around. They're not your prototypical tight end. Instead, they can drop out to the wide receiver position because they have athletic ability. Now, Isaac Nauta's 40 time didn't go as planned. I know his combine wasn't great, but he has the ability to play slot wide receiver, outside wide receiver, do a lot of different things, and he's a pretty solid blocker. He is known as one of the guys in college that have some of the best hands in college football. He played with a lot of competition. He's been working out with Matthew Stafford this offseason, and I think we could see a big bounce back year from Isaac Nauta, man. So don't sleep on Nauta. I'm telling you right now, do not sleep on Isaac Nauta just because we got Hunter Bryant. But speaking of Hunter Bryant, let's talk about it. Our 4th tight end is Hunter Bryant, who in 2019 played for Washington Huskies, right? He played in college. So he is a rookie for the Detroit Lions. He was an undrafted free agent, and when you look at Hunter Bryant, he put up some really impressive stats. And again, like Isaac Nauta, he can bounce to wide receiver position. He's even more athletic than Isaac Nauta is. Almost basically a wide receiver, almost a slot wide receiver, just a little bit unnatural because he's kind of big. But he had 12 games played last season where he had 52 receptions for 825 yards, by far his best season. 15.9 yards per reception, 3 touchdowns, and he's 6'2", 239. Many people thought that this is the most talented tight end in the class, but because of injury issues and, just not being, your normal tight end, he fell out of the draft. And the Lions were able to snag him. Many people look at it as the best undrafted free agent signing. I would say it was pretty darn good. and we know his potential is through the roof. So we'll see how Lions utilize him. I'm curious to see what Darrell Bevell does with Hunter Bryant. Our final tight end is Matt Sokol. Now, Matt Sokol, we haven't seen play, 6'6", 260, he's 24 years old. So again, don't count him out. He's going to fight, right? He's in the positional group. He's there for a reason. He's going to compete for a spot. I necessarily don't think he'll make the team, but he's going to compete for a spot. So those are the tight ends heading in 2020. I would just say don't put your expectations through the roof for this group because there is only one ball to go around, but make sure you keep a closer eye on how they do blocking because that is one thing they do really, really well that helps open up the run game. And we're going to see a lot more with DeAndre Swift next year and protect Matthew Stafford, okay? That's what we need them for. So yes, catch the ball is great. Be more of red zone threats. I think that's what we need to see in 2020. And we just need to see them be more efficient, right? You're good when you get the targets, catch more of them. I know it sounds easy to say, but be more efficient. And I think that will come with chemistry and working with Stafford and Bevell. And then, just make sure you keep an eye on how well they do block though, because I think that's something that goes unnoticed. So those are our tight ends. I expect a little bit of a better year. Nothing crazy, but I expect a better year, maybe more efficient. And let me know your thoughts, comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.